Well, hey there, it's Elka.
I'm Jen, and welcome to another podcast episode of The Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur. And today we are talking about how to use accountability to achieve six figures.
Yeah, in order to achieve that big goal of six figures, you need to use accountability as part of your tool chest and things that you need to have at your ready so that you can achieve this really big goal, which is awesome, right? Who wouldn't want to have a six-figure online business that's working for you? And the accountability that you might think we were talking about is actually like more in depth than you think, right? It's not just about publicly committing a number to someone and say, I'm going to earn this much money or six figures. It's a little bit more than that. And that's what this episode's all about, is to help you understand not only what it means, but how you can use it in your tool chest as a way to really, truly get you to that six-figure mark. That's the most important thing. We're here to help you with that.
So let's go over some of the points that we're going to cover in this episode. So the first one is how to set your goals correctly. Then we're going to talk about publicly committing, which Elka just mentioned. And yes, it's actually a very big part of it. It's not the only thing that is in terms of what you need for accountability, but when you publicly commit to people, then you're actually, stating it out loud and you have more responsibility, I would say. Then the third point is reporting your progress regularly. The fourth is surrounding yourself with people who are actually better than you, which sounds really funny, but you want to be influenced by people because they are doing good things and they're doing things that they want to achieve and they're motivated and inspired. And when you surround yourself with people like that, then you actually feel motivated and inspired yourself too. And the fifth point is get coaching from people who have already achieved what you want to achieve.
And so there you go. It's not just about a number, but it's also important to know where to place your vulnerability in that when you're doing this, right? When Jen said, "Oh, it's you have to state it publicly," that's scary. And so you want to know where you can have a safe place to allow yourself to be that vulnerable. You also want to be able to commit to who you're going to talk to and say that this is what you're committing. You want to know that that person is someone that's really important in your development to get to that six figures, and also someone who can support you so that you can have a reasonably good journey to get there, not an angst journey. And then finally, for someone who can support you because they've already been through that journey and they will have that influence ability for the help that you need to overcome those obstacles, so you don't have to actually do the same amount of journeying that's very difficult for anyone who's doing this on their own. And I think that's something that people forget, that it's not just about telling someone else that this is what you're going to do and then it's like this big ordeal to get do it all on your own, and you're now always afraid to tell that person how you're doing because maybe you're not doing so well. The idea about accountability and how it works at the six-figure level is that you have to allow someone else to be on that journey with you, preferably someone who allows you to be vulnerable but still keeps you in a safe spot while still pushing you forward to achieve your goal, as well as being in a community of like-minded people where they're interested in having you move forward too, and also you be inspired by their success, not be jealous of it. And so we're going to dive into those points that Jen just mentioned in detail, and let's get started.
Okay, so you want to talk about setting your goals correctly?
Yeah, this is my favorite because we actually developed a technique because we were seeing that in our course and coaching community that so many people were struggling with this, because especially in our area, because we are creatives and we were looking for a way to make money online that could be used with our creative talents could be used. And we came across the platform called Zazzle. Well, we had the creative aspect. We didn't have the business aspect. We didn't know how to manage all of this, including accountability. So we were really stuck on the big goal, and then we didn't realize that we were always self-sabotaging ourselves because we didn't have anything else to help us break it up into pieces or make it a little bit easier or play with that mindset of ours that's so, stubborn, because you, on the one hand, you want to have that income, you want to make that goal. And in the meantime, you're like, everything is like, no, like subconsciously, it's like, ooh, this is hard. I can't do this. It's not going to work. I don't know how to get there.
Well, I think it also comes back to the vulnerability too. When you set a goal and you actually aren't able to achieve it or something happens, you beat yourself up afterwards, right? And you're sad or angry and you think that you can never do it, even if you haven't achieved it. Maybe you didn't achieve it exactly, or like a couple dollars less or something, but you still feel very sad of the fact that you weren't able to actually achieve it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Way to go and segue right into the ERSD goals.
I know.
So that's why we designed these and developed this technique, because now you get to set 4 goals. Everything, like each goal that you have, you're actually going to make 4 of the same goal. So, and as the initials stand, like the initials, they stand for things. So E is for easy, R is for reasonable, S is for stretch, and D is for dream. And depending on what kind of goal you're setting, there's obviously a link that we're going to put in the show notes so that you can really understand this. We've got this really awesome blog post that you're going to be able to read and get more details on. But it's really quite simple. It's like easy means you put that as your goal, as your current goal. So if you've never made $1, then you put 0. And it's like, okay, I met my easy goal. And you might think that that's really ridiculous, but if you start to play the game, then you go like, I at least met that goal. And so even though it's a 0, and that's the most surprising thing about this is even if you set your goal at 0, you'll feel better about reaching that goal at 0. Why? Because you're playing a game with your mind, right? It's a gamification. And then so the reasonable goal will then be something that you can reasonably achieve based on what your mentors and coaches have told you is a reasonable amount based on other people's like the things that they've seen in terms of their other students that say, okay, so based on your skill level, how far you're into this business and so on, and how many hours you can commit, we can reasonably tell you that even though we can't make any income claim statements, we can reasonably say that you might make this by the end of the year, for example. And so that would be your reasonable goal. And then the stretch goal would be like a little bit closer to what you really want as your dream goal, but still, like, it would be more like what you would say is like, okay, if I really pushed myself, if I didn't just do the average work, then my stretch goal would be this. Usually it's about like double what the reasonable goal is. But some people like to stretch themselves a little bit more, and then they surprise themselves. They can even get higher than their stretch. And then the dream goal is one of 2 things. If your personality is one that says, okay, I'm okay with these big goals, they don't freak me out, then put your biggest dream goal ever, a gazillion dollars, whatever you'd like. But if your dream goal really freaks you out, right, like makes you scared, like I'll never make it, don't worry. Like if you have any sort of negative feelings like that, then do your dream goal in increments. So instead of saying, I want a gazillion dollars, we say, well, it would be just really nice if I made $1,000 by the end of the year, right? And that's totally so far off that you can't possibly imagine how that even can happen. But then that's what you put in, because it's still a really far off goal, but it hasn't gotten you so upset that you're like, you're stopping before you even start.
Yeah.
Right?
And the funny thing, I just thought about this, you could actually do the ERSD goals just for your dream goal too. So you can like double it and triple it so that you're having like an easy goal for your dream or a reasonable for your dream.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to actually feel like the dream is actually the ultimate too, because you can use it in increments. Yeah. And the funny thing is actually one of our students, she one day messaged me and said, hey, the ERSD goal setting technique is so much fun. I love it for my Zazzle earnings, but I'm going to actually apply it to every aspect of my life. So she actually told me that she was going to use it for her exercise routine during the week, where she would say, okay, yoga 3 times a week is my easy goal, yoga 5 times a week or whatever. And then her dream goal was to do yoga every single day. And so the ERSD goal setting technique is not only just for your Zazzle business or for your business in general, but it can be applied to anything in your life, which is really cool.
Yeah. We've even had some teachers that are students of ours and clients of ours, and they've ended up using it for their kids in their classrooms. And so it's really fun because you realize that what you're doing is giving yourself an easy way to transition into these goals. And the most important part of that, though, is you're never going to be disappointed in your activities, because you don't know actually how fast you're going to get somewhere. And we have these impressions in our heads that we are supposed to get to some place in the future at this time. And that's only based on what other people around us have supposedly done. But maybe we don't even know all the details as to what they've done or how they've gotten there and so on. But yet we put these hard standards on ourselves, which are always going to set us up for failure. And what we want to do, if you're going to be able to achieve six figures, you have to set yourself up for success. And so that's what this ERC goal setting technique allows you to do. And so set your goals correctly, and the correct means so that you will continue to stay motivated, not that you will slowly self-sabotage and stop doing what you're doing. Because getting to six figures, if you're starting at zero, is not that easy.
Yeah. No.
And so be kind to yourself. So number 2, publicly commit.
Publicly commit. This is a scary one, because sometimes when you want to keep yourself accountable, you think, I'm just going to write it down on my notebook, or I'm going to make a note on my computer, and I'm going to set a goal, and that's it. But when you publicly commit and you tell somebody else, now you're actually accountable, or you're being held responsible for your goal. And that might be scary to some people, because then you're actually going to redefine your goals, and you say, hey, maybe I actually really need to think about them and set everything that Elka just said in terms of the ERSD goal setting technique, because then you've actually now figured out what you think is actually achievable and what you want to tell people out loud, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when you're publicly committing, you're basically saying to everybody, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then it forces you to actually think and make those action steps that help you take the right direction towards earning your goal or achieving your goal. And publicly committing, as Elka mentioned before at the beginning, it's not the only thing that keeps you accountable, but it's a huge part, because now you've said it out loud, right? You've said it to people, and they're going to be like, hey, did you do your yoga, or did you post these products for sale? And when we have it in our minds or in our heads, and we just write it down in a notebook, we're not always consciously thinking about it. But then when we publicly commit to somebody, there's that inner feeling that's being being held responsible, right? And so you're actually taking the actions and making the right steps.
So, but we have a little note here in our notes about that it has to be in a conducive setting. And what's really important about that is, this is a challenge for you, right? It's something you're doing that's very new. Most likely, if you're creating this online business, it's something different than what you've been trained to do or used to doing. Like if you're coming from a 9-to-5 job, and all of a sudden you become an entrepreneur, and you're working on trying to create a business, and you have no clue as to what to do, because everything is new and different. It's not in any way the same as you showing up for a job and getting paid a salary. And so, first of all, like Jen said, the goals setting is really scary. But then also you don't want to have any type of environment in which the lack of achieving your goal becomes a judgment. And so this is why people do coaching. This is why people get mentors, because your coach or mentor knows already that, first of all, they do have to keep you accountable and sometimes call you out, but they're going to do it with love and grace. They're not going to do it in your, let's say your husband or your best friend or whoever you told, and they end up not becoming your, confidant. Instead, they become that sort of evil thing that's like always judging you, that you haven't gotten there yet. So that becomes very important as to what the decision is that you're going to make as to who you tell and the environment that you're going to be in with the people that you surround yourself with during this process of you working on making that 6-figure business happen. Yeah. So this is why coaching is just the thing to do, because that's how you're going to achieve that. It's going to give you a safe space, which is still going to push you to achieve your goal, keep you accountable, but you can also be raw and open and honest there. And then when you are that way, people aren't just going to judge you. They're going to help you realize that was something that has to happen. You had to go through that process, or hey, this can be different now because you can do this instead. There'll be positive reinforcement and changes that you can make to how you're creating your business that will be forthcoming when you're in one of these group coaching environments, or if you get a private coach. And so make sure that when you are publicly committing, you're committing those numbers in a safe space where those people who are you're committing to are going to actually be your friends and your support group, rather than it just being something where you end up getting a divorce over it or something. That would be horrible. Okay, so number 3, report progress regularly. Do you want to talk about this one?
You can talk about it. Go for it.
Okay, so this one here, because you did do the publicly commit. We're like tag team. The important part about reporting progress regularly is so that you have a chance to not fail completely. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but if you say, I'm going to do this by 2 months from now, and then the only time you tell someone about it is 2 months from now, then you've got one chance. That's it. You had one chance to get that done. But if you break it down and you say, okay, 2 months from now, I'm going to make $10,000. So that means 1 month from now, theoretically, hopefully, you will have made $5,000, or be on the way to making at least that $10,000. That's a predictable amount. Like, because sometimes what happens is your income increases exponentially, right? So, but if by the first month you're already there's just absolutely no way that it's possible for you to make that money 2 months from now, then you can regroup and you can change your tactics and your actions, and you can reassess. And so you want to continually provide updates, not only to someone else that is holding you accountable, but also to yourself, because it allows you to save face, right? You're instead going to start to be able to manage your business in a different way than just continuing with this one shot, right? And so that's really, really important. And that also gives you a sense of commitment, because you're reinforcing your commitment as well. But the most important part is the saving face and being able to still fix things before it's too late. And I love that, because I never used to do that. Did you used to do that? It was just like, I'm going to get there. But I never said okay, but I'm already here this far. That means this is possible, but hey, this looks like it might not make it to that number.
Yeah.
Then you can have that discussion, right?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, because whenever we, for example, set New Year's resolutions or whatever, it's in 3 months I'm going to lose 10 pounds or whatever. But as I said, you check in with yourself at that 3 month mark, but you don't really go through each month and say, okay, this is my progress. What can I do to better myself or whatever? And it doesn't have to only be about losing weight, but you know, making money or studying harder or taking a course or learning a different language and things like that. And so you always just have that one deadline, which is like the doomsday
deadline.
Doomsday deadline. And if you've achieved it or not, then that's it, right? But it's very true that if you have those incremental check-in stages where you're like, okay, this is where I am at and what can I do to make it better, then it actually makes you feel more comfortable too, right?
Yeah.
You're not always just like, oh my God, June 3rd is coming up, right? So it's very true. Yeah.
And it also helps motivate you. I just, while you're saying that, I realized that it works the other way too, right? I'm always looking at it I get another chance.
Yeah.
Whereas you can also say hey, I actually met my goal at the progress report goal. And so it's I can do this.
Yeah, no, it's very true.
Yeah. Okay, number 4, surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Yeah.
Do you want to take this one on?
This was a weird one that when I first heard it, you actually consciously look at the people who you either are in your family or your friends, or people that you watch as mentors, or even the TV shows that you watch. If you're very isolated or you are not in physical contact with a lot of people, it doesn't matter. It's not about surrounding yourself physically with somebody. It's actually just who do you watch, who do you consume, and who are you around? And when I first heard this, it made me really take a deep dive and a look at who is around me, right? In terms of my friends and how they influenced you and things. Because if you're this is actually fairly funny. They said if you're the smartest person in the group, then you're never going to become better than yourself.
Then you need
you're
a
never
new
going
set
to
of
learn.
friends.
You need a new set of friends, because you're always going to be either dumbing down
so
your
harsh,
language.
but...
I know. It's really harsh, but you're either going to be, dumbing down your language or acting like them or doing things the way that they do, and no judgment on anybody, but it's just that in terms of your intellectual level or what people have achieved, right?
Yeah, your growth.
Your growth, you want to surround yourself with people who are doing better than yourself so that you can look up to somebody and learn their ways or understand how they're doing certain things. And so when you say, who are the 6 people who most influence you or who surround you the most? Who do you like? What kind of books do you read? What kind of TV shows do you watch? Who are your friends? Who are your family? And if there's at least one person who is better than you, then you're able to look up to their ways. And this is also to do with the fact, and which is kind of like interluding into point number 5, but in terms of a coach or somebody who's a mentor who's actually achieved something that you have achieved, right? You're looking up to that person and learning their ways because that's somewhere where you want to be eventually, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's just because we have this brain that's a sponge, right? And we also create our own reality with what we see, hear, do, experience.
Yep.
And have you ever been in a situation where all of a sudden you're like with a new set of friends, you go like, wow, I didn't even know this other life existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And you go like, where have I been all my life? Right? You've been somewhere else in another group of friends or surroundings, and you didn't realize, even maybe if you saw something like on TV or whatever, but until you experienced it, you didn't realize maybe what you were missing. And so that is like the most the most pertinent example I can think of, and the most raw, because I bet you most of you, like if you've like listened to that now, you're like, I got that. Yeah, I've been in one of those situations, and that's the essence of this is you can be in another group of people, whether that's like Jen said, online, reading books, listening to podcasts, getting coaching, watching TV, not watching the news, watching the news, whatever you want to do. But that allows you to filter, because of your choices that you're making, it allows you to filter actually what your reality looks like. Because you're not letting your brain hear and see and experience certain things because of the choices you're making in terms of being with a certain group rather than another group of influencers.
Yeah.
And so that then allows your brain the ability to maybe not focus so much. Maybe let's say if you stop watching the news, that's actually really important. If you don't just like get caught up on the news, sure, but not watch it 24/7, have it on the background. You know, I like it. I hate when they do that in a dentist's office, and I'm like, I'm getting my teeth pulled, and you're telling me all the bad murders and shootings. I need happy stuff.
Yeah.
Can you put it on the home show
It's
or
very
something
true,
like?
actually. They have the news
It's
on the
like,
dentist's
I'm
office.
already stressed, and you haven't even done my tooth yet.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you have to do. You literally have to create your own environment and surround yourself with people that are not only better than you, because that's how you get to 6 figures. You want to get to surround yourself with people who have done 6 figures or even higher than 6 figures, so that you can see how they act, how they speak, how they interpret things, how do they deal with stress, and then that's going to really help you, because your brain is going to be a sponge for that, and they're you're going to start to realize, oh, this is how they handle that.
Yeah.
Well, I never thought of it that way. Or I realize now that, A plus B equals C for them, but A plus my B version doesn't seem to work the same and get the C result. So what's their B? And so it's just so powerful. And maybe we should have made that number 1.
Probably, yeah. It's very true, though. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So getting number 5, get coaching from people who have achieved what you want. And this is so important, right? I mean, when it comes to anything else, right? If you want to learn how to play a sport, or if you want to get fit, or if you want to learn a language, it's so easy. You just go get a teacher or a coach or whatever. And yet when it comes to business and you want to make a 6-figure business happen, you go like, no, I can go on Google, I can go to YouTube, I can read a blog. And the blog post might not even be written by someone who actually has made the six figures that you want to make. And you go like, oh, well, I am going to read the blog first. I'll get all the free information. And that's the worst thing you can do, because that means you're wasting your time. So it's going to take you a lot longer to get to six figures. You might still get there, but you can't get there as fast. And you may have quite a different experience in how you got there. It might not be as pleasant. It might not be as exciting. It might actually make you quit, because even before you got there. And with all of that negative energy, you might actually think that you can't ever make a business work at six figures. And that's the most sad thing out of the entire process, because we're so hard on ourselves. Not just creatives. Creatives are even worse, which is our group here. But it's also just people in general. They try their best on their own, and then they somehow, without realizing it, make such big judgments on their results, and assume that means they can't make it. And we have so many examples in our coaching programs of people who literally didn't realize they could make it or believe in themselves, because they tried so much on their own and they didn't get any help. And so they thought, that's my lot in life. That's how I'm going to be. I can't do this. Others can do it. I can't. And as soon as they got the coaching help, they are just flourishing. They're thriving. They're making six figures every year. And you go, well, it was because of the coaching. It was because of the right coaching, right? It's not a blog post. That's a coach, sort of. It's a blog post, but you think it's coaching, but it's not. A coach is someone who knows how to coach someone properly. Keep motivating them, give them some hard talk too, but still keep guiding them forward, and knows where this, and actually a mentor even, in this case, if you want to get to six figures, a mentor is a person who has done the work before and has achieved the results. Whereas a coach is just someone who guides you, and they may or may not have had the experience and gone through it themselves, but they know what to do to keep you motivated and guide you. Whereas Jen and I, we are both coaches and mentors, because we are not only really great at helping our students and clients be coached so they can achieve amazing things that they never thought possible, but also that we have been through this journey and we ourselves have made six figures. And so that's the most important thing, to get a coach that has actually experienced what you want to accomplish, and accomplish what you want to accomplish, and has had that experience as well, because that's priceless, that experience, because it means that when you're having a rough day or a rough time of it, or something's not working, it's not just the glory days, it's what can people help me with when I'm actually struggling. And that's where we come in as mentors. So that's really, really important to remember, that in your business you have to treat it as much worth as you would, like, let's say you wanted to play basketball and you go join a basketball like coaching program. Like we have such a disconnect with regards to when it comes to earning money and allowing us to feel worthy enough that we deserve a coach, that stops like 99% of the population from actually achieving their full potential when it comes to earning money.
No, very true.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the 5 points. Do you want to re-summarize them?
Well, sure. The first one is set your goals correctly. The second one is publicly commit. The third is report your progress regularly. The fourth is surround yourself with people who are better than you. And the fifth is get coaching from people who have achieved what you want to achieve.
So that wraps up our how to achieve six figures using accountability. I hope you have a much better understanding now of how accountability is an overarching word for a lot of things that you have to deep dive into to really get what six figures looks like in terms of accountability. And we would love to chat with you some more about that. And maybe you're a perfect candidate for this, and you should be in our Creative CEO Mastermind to help you with all of this. And this is actually the program that does this for you. It helps you with that accountability and champions you on to achieve as much as you can achieve. And we'd love to see that for you.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.